Hello, and welcome to In the Know Women's Show. Continuing with our guest host initiative, Erin Jones will be subbing in for me. I use that word intentionally because Erin has been an educator for many years here in Washington State and is now a well-known educational consultant and speaker. If you'd like to know more about Erin, tune in to our reruns on Tuesdays at 10:30-ish via local access channel 22 or online at tcmedia.org. Now, Erin returns to the In the Know Women's Show to interview Khurshida Begum, also a local who is making important positive impacts on our community. Khurshida is the founder of the ASHHO Cultural Center located right here in Thurston County in Tumwater, Washington. We're honored Khurshida will be our guest today, sharing her endeavors and the influences in her life. We're fortunate to have both women on today. They have very busy schedules doing the work they do, so I thank them for making the time. As there's much to cover today on this 13th episode, I'll pass it over to Erin without further ado. Enjoy.
Well, I am so excited to be here today with one of my best friends in the entire world, Khurshida Begum. I had the opportunity to be on this show last year and to have the opportunity now to introduce the world to one of the most fabulous women in Thurston County is such an incredible honor. And so, Khurshida, welcome today to the Thurston County community and television.
Yes, that's exciting. I haven't been here for a long time. I thought when you were talking about interviewing, I thought I was going to be interviewing you. I was like, what are the odds that my best friend is doing this interview?
There we go. So we get to share with the community about you, but also about the Cultural Center, about the ASHHO Cultural Center. And so let's start out a little bit for folks who don't know where the Cultural Center is. Can you share a little bit about where it is? And then we'll get into what it is and how you ended up here later. But I want them to hear right away, where is the ASHHO Cultural Center?
It is in Tumwater, right across from Costco in Tumwater. So just literally where the gas station Costco is, you go across from there. It's also the former Pellegrino's Catering and Event Center. Before that, it was the Thai Hotel or Thai something.
Yeah.
So that's right there.
And what are a few things that happen there? We'll get into a little more detail later, but what are some of the things that people who are just community members could engage in?
Well, the first event that we started was Walk with Erin Jones. I think that's our longest event that happens every first Saturday of the month from 11 to 1. And we extended it from Walk with Erin. Now we've added every first Saturday, people can also come enjoy the Cultural Bazaar. And that's from 11 to 3. And then with that, we also added live music. We've added spoken word. So it just kind of evolved slowly. But every first Saturday, there's a lot to do at this cultural center.
Awesome. So for those viewers who don't know who I am, my name is Erin Jones, and I am actually the first Black woman in the state of Washington to run for a statewide office. I ran to lead public schools after a lifetime in education, 25 years of working in education, from Philadelphia to South Bend, Indiana. I was actually Pete Buttigieg's 8th grade PE teacher. That's my little claim to fame. And then I taught in Tacoma and then in Spokane and was the assistant state superintendent for several years. But I now call this place home. And Khurshida and I met 15 years ago when I moved to this community to work at the office of state superintendent. And
I feel like it was longer than that, sis, because I moved here from Massachusetts 2006.
And I moved here in 2008.
Okay, so that's around when you met and you were like trying to find your way out here and I was trying to find my way. And we found each other at the PTA meeting of all places. My son was experiencing a lot of different racism in the school districts. And so I was going to the district office and then they're like, there's a PTA meeting if you want to share your voice. And I met her and that was it. Then we kept seeing each other at the church and the Boys and Girls Club,
Yeah.
everywhere else in between.
Yeah, we just kept doing this thing for a long time. And I think what's really powerful about our story and why I love that we get to share it with people is we became really good friends at a Christian church. So my husband was a pastor for a long time in Tacoma. And when we moved here, we were looking for a place here. And we ended up at this church. And I met Khurshida, who is Muslim, at my Christian church. And we were the only two brown families in our church. And so we just saw each other, oh, you. And I think what's really beautiful about our relationship is that you are a Muslim, I'm a Christian, and we love each other. And I think we model this way of being that can love across difference. And we're really intentional about that.
And I also remember, like, I think the church thing where people are like, why were you going to the church? You know, I was just looking for a place to belong, and she would always sit in front, and then, you know, I just was kind of forced to talk to her because I couldn't see the stage. So I'm like, hey, who are you?
Oh, that's awesome. And we love each other, and our kids know each other, and
well, and then what I was telling you earlier with our son, I was really upset about my son's experiences. And then here she was speaking at the PTA, and then it was like, okay, let's do these diversity trainings back then.
Back before it was popular. So we began teaching together and providing trainings in the school district together. And then talk a little bit about the events that we hosted at the Lacey Community Center, because that is really the birthplace of the Cultural Center, is the work that you initiated, and then I joined you.
Let's see, the Lacey Community Center was the one place that I felt like we could go. I said, Erin, I started hosting, actually, my niece and I started to have, we're like, there's all these like difficult, hard human rights issues. Where do people go and talk about these things so we can either be aware of it, be educated, know resources? And we started with our own personal story of being trafficked from Bangladesh to here. And what we realized was, like, there were so many intersections of other, crimes that people don't really talk about, whether it's domestic violence or sexual assault, sexual abuse, those kinds of things. So my niece and I was like, hey, we're gonna start having these community gatherings, is what I called them. And I would make all the food. And we did tickets were like $25. Like, we didn't make any money at all, honestly. We were in the negative. But it was a way for people to come together. And then we started to meet, and whatever I asked Erin to show up for, she would just show up. She was like, okay, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? But we started to meet at Lonnie's house. I think it was like every other week. And then we started to put together the Collective Sisterhood. And that was just like a group of amazing women, just talking about the different experiences that our kids had navigating the schools. We were parents, we were beautiful Black and brown, strong, powerful women that came together. And then we started, hey, let's do this thing at the Lacey Community Center. So we did like celebrating sisterhood, we did honoring Black lives, and that's really what I wanted to do. And so my niece, who's a senator now, her thing back then was, that's great. Like, you're an extrovert, you like to be around people, you like to do impact by talking to people. And her thing is, she's like, I like to analyze, I like to write, I want to do policy change. So it was kind of that pivoting moment of, I want to do this work around people, bringing people together in person, having these live conversations. She was like, I want to look and change laws and bills and make things better. And so here we are, two different paths, but still doing impactful work. So
I want to transition a little bit to talk about what happened with the pandemic. So I think there are a lot of things that happened in 2020 that it was just a perfect storm. Mm-hmm. So we had the pandemic that shut things down, and then the murder of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, all of that. How did that affect the vision that you had to continue to have hard conversations in this community? How did you use the talents that you have to really put out into the world something better and some hope for people who were really struggling to find hope, either because of COVID or because of losing jobs, losing housing. What were some of the things that you were able to do before the Cultural Center became a thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, you and I know we're professional speakers. That's all I did before. It's kind of funny how back then I was traveling and you were, doing the state stuff. And then now the tables have turned, right? I get to watch you travel everywhere. But like you, all of my speaking and training, everything just came to a halt. And I just was thinking of I think it was 2 weeks of being in a funk. And I'll never forget, it was the week of March 18th or the 20th. I was like, what is one basic human need that I can contribute to and use my privilege of having a home, having a car? I wasn't financially wealthy or anything, but I was like, what can I do with these two things? And we came up with, I told my husband, I was like, we're going to do this buy one, give one, and pay it forward program because people are home, restaurants, everything was closed. Grocery stores are still open, so we started I said, I want to donate 400 meals a month, and then we moved it to 500, so we were literally doing 125, 130 meals a week, and that was soup kitchens were closed, nobody was getting food anymore, and then if there were people, I figured if there were people with abundance, or people who were just sick of their food, or they just really cannot cook at all, I was like, it's a win-win. You get to buy a meal, we match it, or you can give a meal, or you can just pay it forward because you have an abundance. And so that really took off. And there were 20, you remember, you were one of my first OGs of the buy one, give one.
Every day, because
4 to 6 meals.
I have no shame in saying that I do not cook. I do not cook. So when Khurshida began to cook for people, I was like, me first. I will be there every day that you are cooking. I'm going to come get food because I'm great at lots of things. Cooking is not one of them.
Yeah.
So I was blessed.
Yes.
And we had enough abundance that I was able to invest in.
Yeah, and that, it was people like you that kept it going and growing, and then you shared with people, and then, I don't consider myself to be a chef or went to any type of school, but that's just what I felt like I was called to do. And so then when you have 20, 30 cars rolling up on Puget Street, it was I had to go tell my neighbors, look, I'm not doing anything illegal. I have this program that I started, we're feeding people. And then a good friend of mine contacted me about the Pellegrinos, hey, they're shut down. And I was able to actually rent their facility 2 times a week, Sundays and Sundays and Wednesdays, paid them rent. And then the minute that I stepped there to just go for the initial appointment, I was like, oh my gosh, everything felt like that's where it was supposed to be at. So I had no idea that the Pellegrinos were even going to leave or anything, but I shared with them at that first meeting, I was like, when the pandemic's over, I want to rent the place. I want to start doing these community gatherings and conversations and trainings. And they're like, okay, well, your rent will go up and da-da-da-da. But I started August of 2020 renting it. And then mid-September, they were like, we're leaving end of October. And then I found out that they weren't actually the owners. It was somebody else in Sumner. And you can just imagine, for me, I'm like, oh, I built this relationship with them. I would hope that they could pass it on. But they were like, this is so beautiful what you're doing, feeding the community. We're going to, tell the owner that they should really get to meet you and talk to you. And like I said, Erin, I had no type of money to even think about getting that place or what I could even afford. But the owner came down a couple of times, and I think you were there one of the times. But one time I was just like, please sit down with me. I want to tell you what this place what it could really do and the impact that you're going to be trusting me. Because I didn't come from work or business where I had, substantial amount of money to secure that I could pay the rent. And and so he took a chance. He took a chance, and I don't know how much more you want me to get into that, but he just really, I walked him through the vision of you know, we don't have a place. We don't, Black and brown and marginalized folks, refugees, immigrants, people from other places, even people that are here that may not even be from that community. It's so hard to find a place that you belong, that you're seen, that you're heard, that you're valued just for your existence. You know, and so that was really important to me to make sure that that the center was going to be that place, so that our people felt like they had a home, but that anybody that wasn't Black, brown, or from marginalized communities, they also are welcome to come and feel like they belong there as well. Yeah.
You know, I think about that week of March 16th, 18th, 20th, that first week after school shut down. And I remember I had this picture in my head of hands open. And I think about you as a hands open person too. And here's, when I talk about that season of life, I talk about so many people with the little bit they had held on so tightly to that little bit they had because they were afraid.
Yeah.
And I think both of us decided, nope, we're gonna take the little bit we have.
Yeah, because you were reading
our
books. You were like, she was reading books in different languages, the kids' books.
On Facebook
you know?
Live.
So I'm trying to feed people, and she's trying to like stimulate and keep people like somewhat grounded, the kiddos. And we would watch you, Arhan and I would watch you read the books, and then you did all those different. Yeah, I mean, I just felt like, and even when I was doing that, I got a lot of, like, my husband was like, people aren't gonna eat your food, it's a pandemic, you know, and then other people are like, why are you going to people's houses? You don't have masks on, and, you know, like, everything's shut down, so we should be shut down too. And I would think you and I were like, no.
How do
like,
we give? How do we give out of what we have?
What can we do? And people need to eat. Like, all the soup kitchens were closed, and, you know, for years, we volunteered in those kitchens trying to bring cultural food. And so I also think it's like a 360, because when I was at these different places downtown, or places that provided cooked food, I was like, can we add rice? Can we do this? Well, I didn't have any culinary background, so, you know, or anything like that. So, all right, cover this up. We couldn't do it. And so I felt like this was a time that I was like, we finally get to feed cultural food to folks who are on strict incomes, on the streets, shelters and tent communities. So
can you talk a little bit about how you decided what food to give people? Because I will just say, I've also worked in soup kitchens, and I've worked with people who are experiencing food shortage, and often they get the leftovers and they get stuff that no one else would want to eat. Can you talk a little bit about how you decided what to feed people?
Yeah, it was really important to me to make sure that even to this day, when we do catering, everything is the things that I would eat, that I would invite you to my house to eat, is the same quality of food that we donated to the community. So I didn't want to be like, oh, we're gonna buy this chicken because it's on clearance or it's almost at the end. It was like, what do I eat? What do you eat? It might be a little more, but everybody deserves comfort and to feel like just whatever they're going through in life, we know what really good food does to us. It brings us some sort of comfort. And that's just one thing that I could do. And so it's the same, you know, we halal chicken. So it's like the halal, the vegetables, everything that I cater now is the same quality of food that we donate. And so a lot of times when we cook extra, we go and donate it. We have regular places that we give food out to.
So give them a menu of some of the things.
Yeah.
I want them to know, because here's what I will tell you. The Jones house, in fact, fun fact, Khurshida cooked for my son's wedding this last summer. And that's all people could talk about was the food. So talk about some of the kinds of foods, just because I want people to know.
Yeah, for
they
sure.
need to come for the food.
Yeah.
There are other things to come for, but you got to come for the food. What are some of the things you're cooking?
Well, without coming from that background, but the food is, I felt like it's really important to introduce or bring comfort in the very communities that people are from. So we have, and I don't take credit for like knowing every cuisine from the areas, but I have taken things that I have mastered, is what I call it. So we do authentic jerk chicken, coconut rice and peas, butter chicken, chicken curry, pad thai, yakisoba, chicken veggie yakisoba, egg korma, what else? There's like different cuisines. Navajo Indian fry bread tacos with Three Sister soup. And I like really focus on some of those cuisines because it's really hard. And to give you an example, when we did the buy one, give one, and it started to grow, it was incredible when we put Navajo Indian fry bread tacos with Three Sister soup. Okay, it's really simple, but the communities that were coming to get that comfort, you know, was like, oh my gosh, I only get this during this time, or from my grandma, or from the reservation. Well, what about the rest of the folks? You know what I mean? So there's no indigenous cuisines out here. You can't go get Navajo fry bread anywhere unless you go on the res or something. So that just, I don't know, that was just amazing to see. I was like, I didn't know all these people are from, you know, out here. Indian people are ordering, and yeah.
And then
so
I'm curious too how you have used food to bring people together beyond just the catering.
Yeah.
We've had lots of events at the center.
Yeah.
And why is food so important to you?
Well, it's a basic human need, and it is something that you can say, hey, there is food offered, or there's going to be food, and people always know everything we do at the center always centers around food. Even if somebody's like, we want to host this event, but we can't really afford the food, I'm like, we can make something work within your budget, because food is what brings people together. People will come, they may have not talked to each other for a long time, but let's just say it's like a Thanksgiving dinner or some kind of birthday party. There's always food, and people will talk to each other when they're trying something new or something that is comforting to them. They will let their guard down and be able to talk about whatever, and they could be total strangers. And so I really believe in our thing about, like, we have created a place, a sacred place where people can belong, feel like they're welcomed, and they unite through soul food education and gatherings. And that food is what the conversations, the really hard conversations, happen.
You know, I think about, not only do you provide really amazing food, but you have curated a really beautiful space. I can't think of one new person who's come in who hasn't said, oh my gosh, the art on the walls or the color, right? And so you have been really intentional too with making that space beautiful. Can you describe the space a little bit for people who haven't been there before?
Sure. I mean, I really try to think about representation. So as someone who came from a whole different place, watching my family, watching my biracial son, not seeing any type of representation. So when you come in this space, it's accidentally curry is the color of the building. Literally went to the paint store and I was like, we got to redo this. And the first thing I spent any money that had coming in was to make sure that the place felt like people could feel something. So when I went to the paint store, picked it up, it was curry. Like, it literally was curry. I was like, this is crazy. It's bright, it's yellow, it's kind of like this color. I want it to feel good and cheerful. The art, you may see, there's a lot of native, there's a lot of affirmations. I try to think about, what do I need in a workplace? What do I want to feel like? And then what would this be for other people? And just a lot of intention. So people come in, Erin, and they're like, it's a catering and catering and rental place. And I'm always amazed when people come in, and yes, we are an event rental place. That's what it was known for 8 years. And there's people who come in and they have an event, they have a conference, they have a training, they're, renting the place. There's people who just come in and it's nothing to them. Like, we're on autopilot. And then, like what you're talking about, people that come in, especially like folks from like our communities. I can't tell you how many beautiful Black women that I have seen that have come in there and have just cried, have been in tears. That are just like, I've never felt like this before. It is very intentional. Like, we shouldn't have to wait to come to the center to see representation. And if that is the place, then it fills my soul. Like, yeah. So it's just,
there's really not a space that I can think of south of Tacoma that really feels like, when I walk into it, this place was made for me.
Yeah, that's the word. That's what we've heard before. Yeah.
And it's really beautiful. I want, for you to share a story, and I'm going to start with one because I want you to just have some time to think, but share a story of a person who's come into the center who's either surprised you that they ended up there, or they've shared a story with you that was really shocking and beautiful, or maybe challenging. I can remember 2 years ago when we did Juneteenth, and this older white gentleman came in, and almost everyone in the center at the time, and we have people of all colors that come into the center. So having white people, there are always white people there. It is not a center. It's a center that centers Black and brown experiences.
Yes.
But it is not a center just for Black and brown people. So I love that about us too.
Yep.
And we have really great LGBTQIA representation, Christian, Muslim, Jewish. I mean, I think that's
everything.
Baha'i. I love that it's everything. But I remember on the very first Juneteenth that the nation celebrated Juneteenth really broadly, this older white man walked in. And it was obvious when he walked in, he had never been there before. And there was something awkward about how he showed up. But it was also really obvious he was really curious, which I love. As a teacher, I love when people are curious.
Curiosity's good.
Absolutely. And I could feel that he was curious, even though he was awkward. I'm going to assume he was in his 70s. My parents are in their late 70s, and he reminded me of about their age, so maybe mid-70s. And he had this piece of paper in his hands. And I was greeting people as they came through the door, and I asked him how he had heard about this event. And he stammered a little bit, and he had this piece of paper, and he said, my wife died last year, and I've been trying to clean out our garage, and I just found this piece of paper in my garage, and it's the housing note that when they purchased their property in the 70s, he had just discovered the original document, the purchase order, and it said on it, not to be sold to any Negroes. And he was so shocked by that in Olympia. And it was a house in Olympia.
I remember, yeah.
He was so shocked that he said, Erin, this is the first time I realized this was in my house. He said, I didn't notice it when I first purchased the home. And I'm so horrified that this was a truth that I decided to go to every Juneteenth event in the region.
Wow.
And ours, I think, was the third one that he'd been to.
Yeah.
And that to me was so beautiful because I think that has been the point of the place is how do we create a space for people like him too?
Yeah.
So it's a space for us to belong, but it's also a space to invite people in who are trying to figure it out. So can you think of a story of someone you've gotten to meet at the center?
I mean, there's a lot of people. Matter of fact, just recently I had someone say like, hey, I don't see any crosses anywhere. Like you have, you know, Jewish representation, you have this representation, you have this, but I don't see any crosses anywhere. And what I got to say was, well, we have Thursday night church here by a librarian couple, and they use it for Thursday night, like 7 to 10, and then on Sundays. And then I said, I just want to remind you, and then there was like another picture that had all these faith leaders, and I think back then it was, South Africa.
Right, Nelson Mandela.
Yeah, the picture up there. I was like, here. And then I was also like, if you think about it, you can find a church almost every corner. Do you want me to put that here? I mean, we already rent someone and they can do services. And then it was just like, oh, I even love this place even more because they thought we were just like,
exclusive.
Yeah, exclusive. And so I don't know, that was just one story. I do get where people, couple times people have said, hey, should I come in there? Like, is it for me? Like, few white folks have felt that way. And I love that they're able to even share that, right? That's pretty brave and vulnerable. And they said, well, I wasn't sure if I should come here. And then they came, I can't remember, I'm trying to think what event we had. Now it's not in my head, but they were like, we weren't sure. I wasn't sure if I should come in here if it's for white people or not. And, but I just love the art. And actually, I'm leaving a better person because I attended this event, because I'm so impacted by the way that people saw me, the way that people talked to me at this event. And so you just never know. But the end goal is to make sure that people feel like that is the best time of belonging and feeling like they're welcome and valued, whether they come in to pick up food or whatever they come in for. That's our idea. And it's not that performative.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, come be yourself. And I say we're beyond like, you know, catering and room rental. Every room has a name, you know. You come in and then there's automatically the first door, the first room. There's 3 rooms, well, actually 4 rooms, but there's the brave room. And so any chance, anybody that uses it, I always tell the leaders or the facilitators, I was like, you can use this all day, but just remember you're in the brave room. So let people know that they can be brave in here. They can be vulnerable in here. And it doesn't cost anything. It doesn't work. And so it says brave room, and then the middle room is the smaller one, and it's called the survivor room, because everybody has some kind of story of surviving. We're all survivors. If we're alive today, we're all survivors of something, whether it's violence or, you know, cancer, whatever. Like, we're all survivors of something. But that should be the smallest part of your life. You know, that's what happened to you or what your past is does not reflect where you're at today. So that's the smallest room. And then we have the freedom room. And I use that word because I don't think a lot of us even know what our own freedom is, with the freedom and fighting for freedom for other people, freedom for basic human needs. So I want people to like rethink, what does that word mean to them, and how do they show up with that? And then we have Runia Soul Cafe, which is dedicated to my 13-year-old cousin who died of suicide. And so that room is probably my favorite room. And it's just about like all these social issues that we've experienced, that she experienced, whether it was mental health, whether it was suicide, whether it was trafficking and abuse. Those are things that are in everybody's community. So her bio is there so people can know that room is really dedicated for all these common issues that we have. But we're still alive, and we can still do something and be in community.
And I love, again, it's back to that open hand. It's not staying in the mess.
Yeah.
But how do we take the mess and heal from it, and then use that healing that we're experiencing to heal others?
Yes.
I feel like that's so much of what the space is about. I'm curious, you talked about Runya, but can you think about who are some other people or places that have inspired you through your life to become the person that you are today, this leader of a really amazing space? Yes.
I think for a long time, when you have, for me, I have experienced what it means to be the otherness. I have experienced being dehumanized and, you know, not belonging at a very young age. I've witnessed and I've experienced that far of not belonging, not being wanted, not seeing representation, not knowing, am I Muslim enough? Am I Bengali enough? Am I American? Am I this? Am I this? And it's so many people struggle with that. And so that has always been a core of me, of how do we create a space? I mean, like where do we belong? Where do we go and be ourselves? And even down to my staff and my team, like, we're not here to perform. You know, there's different things, like we don't say the word, you don't say the word help at the center, because we don't need help. And help is always referred to like the help. Like we say support, elevate, uplift, promote. There's other words for it. You know, we don't say I'm sorry. What are we sorry for? We're here. If you're late, people always like, I'm sorry I'm late. Let's try that again. You're here, I'm here, you know. So it's even just thinking about what we say in this space makes a big difference on how we show up. So I always tell my team, you have to be healthy, you gotta be well. Don't come in here performing and you got all this other stuff, or you didn't get good night's sleep, or you got some other issues, or you know, things that you're struggling with. Show up in this place, be brave, be vulnerable, the very thing that we say that place is about. We also practice that within our team. And I mean, we're not a huge team, but we have to practice these things, because if we're really, truly, genuinely, authentically want to impact people and want people to feel like they belong and have created this place where people feel welcome, we got to do that with ourselves too. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it's a lot of practicing.
So I'm curious, connected to that, what are some ways that you feel like you have grown as a person in the last 3 years?
I'm still growing right now.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, we're still on the journey,
think.
girl. I didn't say you've arrived. But what are some lessons that you've learned about yourself or about being a businesswoman? Or
I would say faith over fear is a constant reminder. Like, my faith is stronger than my fears, and then when I have fears, my faith is going to allow me to address that fear. So that's one of my big things for me that keeps me grounded. And I just always come back to, like, how can I serve humanity? How can I come back to just that basic thing? If I feel like anything, what is a basic human thing that I can do and contribute as a person? And as long as I know how to answer that and show up, then I feel like it's easier for me. Mm-hmm. So just knowing your why, and you talk about that all the time. And I think my why of being here, getting up and showing up every day is because I have a purpose here. And that purpose is to touch lives or create where people are impacted. And while this time on earth is short, everybody deserves to feel like they have comfort, they belong, and they're welcome.
Yeah, I love that. I think, I talk about you often in my keynote speeches, and I tell people that as a Jesus girl, my faith is stronger because of you. Because there are ways that you love deeply and that you practice your faith in really deep, profound ways that challenge my own faith journey. And I think it's such a beautiful thing that, and I know that there are a lot of Christian folks that probably think you can't learn from a Muslim. What are you talking about? And I would say you and I are a great example. I think we make each other better.
Yeah.
Like we.
Because I'm like, you're a pastor's wife. I was like, I don't know when you say that. I'm like, oh my gosh, no.
No, but you've taught me so much about what does it mean to truly live hands open. And it doesn't mean that you're perfect. And I know there are times where you're like, I just want to hold on to the little, but you always force your hands open to give back, even when you're tight. When you have just a little bit left, you are always willing to give back. And I just so value that. And you push me to be better, and you push me to think about, how do I give, and am I giving with the right attitude? And I know we both are challenged with that at times.
We are.
Right?
I mean, we're still open the first year is because of you, girl. Like, you're like, I don't know, but God was telling me I should give you this check. Because when we signed the lease, I don't know if you remember, I was like, Erin, I don't know how we're going to pay the rent. The owner, I mean, for 7 months we were dragged thinking we're getting this funding, and you remember every meeting we went to the cities, to here, to there, and presenting, because at that time, after the murder of our brother George, then it was like statements, right? Company statements, and everybody was about diversity, equity. So I was like, here's actually a place that we could do this work, and I was like, Erin, I don't know how we're going to pay the rent. First month, second month, third month went by. We were 3 months behind. It's not funny. But you were just like, God gave me this check and it should go here. And so it's always interesting when you're like, you're the visionary, you're this, and you also supported that with, we kept our doors open, and here we are still.
Yeah.
So.
Well, when you imagine what the center could be, when you imagine it thriving, what do you imagine? And then the last question I'm going to ask you is, how can people show up and either engage or support or elevate or fund? But first, when you imagine like your dream ASHHO space, what would be happening there in the best of all possible worlds?
I mean, you're an educator. For me, we tried the youth thing. I really want our younger generation, our youth, to be having different regular programs there, gatherings there, and because that's our future leaders. And so I think that's really important. I want more youth to feel, and so we're trying to figure out, how do we build trust with the families, right? We've been there 3 years, and a lot of people don't understand why they haven't heard about us. And, I always say, we're growing intentionally, not by demand. Yeah. And so we tried hey, youth, we're going to do this thing. And then we're like, we actually got to talk to the parents, build the relationships. So for me, I want to see more youth and families using it. So using that space having listening conversations for different things that families are experiencing, to not be so worried about rent, that there's so many other nonprofits and local resources and businesses, well, I don't want to say business, but resources that are really struggling right now. And they provide and are expert in the services that they provide. And yet they don't have a space for, to raise funds or to run their programs and services. So those are things that we really want to open up our doors to be able to do that. Also just like, it can be a place that we have really hard conversations. So, I love like Jada Pickett, they do like that red table. So there's different things that I want to bring at that beautiful place and have some of these really difficult conversations with the, what's happening in the school, in the state, and people that are running for political position who don't really get to share why they got into it and what they're wanting to do to change some of those systems, Those are the kinds of conversations and gatherings, and then just joy, people got to have joy in their life too. And I hope that that's a place that people can grow and also enjoy and joy together.
Yeah. So how can people show up and in support of the cause? Where could they donate if they went to? Do you have a website?
Yes, we do. It's ASHHO, ASHHO.
And what does that mean?
Yeah,
we forgot that.
Great. So back in 2008, 9, my niece, Senator Yasmin Trudeau, we're sitting down. She's from the 27th district in Tacoma. When we were coming up with a name to do this really hidden community issues and conversations and gatherings at the Lacey Community Center, we were like, we got to come up with a name. So then we came up with the name. Then we're like, we got to figure out what the acronyms mean, and to follow up with everybody else, because everything is acronyms. So we came up with ASHHO because, again, with the hands, we really wanted to invite people. We wanted people to come. So ASHHO is it's from Bangladesh, Bengali. ASHHO means to come. You're calling. So you'll hear a lot of times, hey, edige ASHHO, ASHHO, ASHHO. You're calling your kids. You're calling your friends. It's not a demand. You're telling them in a nice tone, like, to come, ASHHO, come join me. That's what it means in Bengali. So anytime you hear that. But then we had to get deeper into, like, why are we doing these hidden community issues? What are we trying to do? And so we're like, well, the A is for advocating. We're advocating for folks who are marginalized. We're advocating for folks who don't always have a voice at the table or representation. So advocating, and then the S is for serving kindness, serving professionalism, serving delicious food, And then the H is probably my favorite, which is to honor humanity. Honoring humanity in the stories that we share, honoring humanity in the lived experiences, and the stories that we tell about people. Like, are we honoring humanity when we do that? And then the O is for organizing positive change, organizing radical change in our communities. So my vision of when you're asking me that, catering and room rental is far from that vision. It's just that we were super blessed that we could make that work to generate revenue to keep our doors open this far. And then the nonprofit piece is more of the education, the community feeding, community healing, and cultural celebrations. Because for years going through, K through 12 schools, I would call you and I'm like, hey, another cultural celebration. I want it to be done and celebrated in a way where we're not just like, let's do food and dance and that's it. Let's actually have those very communities be invited. Let's actually get to know what are their customs and traditions, and not just, oh, this means this. When they have all the different dancers that come, people don't know, like when they have Asian Pacific Islanders come to dance, there's so many different islands. There's different ways, the music, the stories that are told. So that's why we have cultural celebrations on there. So when we do it there, it's not just like, let's just have fun and then forget it. No, you're going to actually see people. You're going to experience the food. You're going to get to know their customs and their traditions. And if they have a business or whatever they have, people can be connected to that.
Awesome. And then is there anything special coming up in May?
So you were asking, so ASHHO, ASHHO.org is where people can go. And right now we're kind of going through this phase of like, we house the Cultural Community Center houses. We just went through the name of ASHHO Catering and Event Center LLC. And then there's the ASHHO Cultural and Job Training Program that I didn't share with you. So that's under our education piece. We're still waiting for funding to come through. We've been waiting for some time, but we're gonna have buy-in for hands-on interactive job training program, culinary and hospitality job training program that we really need support with to hire folks. It's gonna be a 12-week program, so they'll all go through the culinary job training program. But it gets better because we're not just saying, this is all you're gonna be able to do. You're gonna get into food industry. Now, some folks who have barriers to employment, that's the fastest way to get the food, but to get a job. But they're also gonna learn skills, confidence, and like how to advocate for themselves in a job place. Just because you have barriers to employment, you still deserve to be seen and heard, right? So they'll also have the opportunity, maybe they wanna get into entrepreneurship. Maybe they were formerly incarcerated and they're this incredible artist who's never been encouraged to start their own thing, you know what I mean? And so there's gonna be like 4 different tiers. I'm really excited about it because it's usually like, you're only gonna go into this field and that's it. And for our people of color, you know, we're not encouraged a lot of times to think beyond just, this is a job training program, you're gonna work in a restaurant. No, there's a lot of other things that folks can do. So we need support in that. So if there's anybody, you know, out there that has an abundance or really believes in having a robust job training program, that's what we wanna, that's one of the things that we wanna do hopefully this coming fall. Now, as far as May, we have Walk with Erin, May 4th. Is that the Saturday?
I can't remember. It's the
first Saturday of the month, May 4th. And so you do Walk with Erin. It's our last one. We've waived the fees for the vendors. Probably shouldn't be saying that, but it's a celebration. And so we're going to do that. We're going to have Terrence come out, do a spoken word. Oh, April 27th, this was inspired by Arhan. Arhan came to me in February.
Arhan is her 8-year-old son, by the way.
Arhan came to me and said, hey, he's like, Mom, you always do all this stuff for people, old people, you know, people have conferences and trainings. He's like, what if I want to have like a chess tournament? What if I want to have my friends and their families and we have like a family thing? So I said, that's great. We started Family and Friends Game Night. So that's on April 27th. People can literally show up. We donated last month. This month we have a partnership with the YMCA for April 27th from 5 to 8. There's a chess tournament, dominoes, spades, and then other board games. We have a sip and paint person that's coming that we're paying. So they can do that. So there's choices. You could be a gamer or you could not. But it's also a way to get kids out of technology and get out of video games and actually be in person and do interactive stuff. So that's happening on the 27th. And then we have, of course, our Juneteenth, which will be on the 19th. And then we'll do our 3-year celebration sometime in September. So, awesome. Yeah, I mean, we're just about community. And I always tell people, you know, if people want to support us, they want to feed someone, they want to bring back healing, because we did community and healing with Dr. Bree. You know, they have ideas. If folks have ideas on celebrations or gatherings that they want to see happen, and they want to take the lead on planning it. See, what happens, Erin, is everybody wants to come to us, hey, you should do this, and you're the one that was like, we need to say no. And so it's beautiful because I've been able to say no, hey, if this is really important to you, come to me and tell me what your plan is. So this one single mom came to me, and it's been really important for her kids to do break dance, to have a break dance instructor. I was like, thank you for sharing. When you find someone and you do the footwork, come back to us. You know what happened? I'm going to be meeting with him next Monday, and to be able to, offer that to kiddos to come and do that, and we'll pay the instructor. So if there's folks who are just like, I have an abundance, we trust you, you doing impactful work, allow us to make those decisions on what types of programs, who we pay, or, facilitators, presenters, or whatever, you know what I mean? That's probably our biggest ask, is like, hey, here's a pot of money. This is for community events. Do whatever you want to do with it. And that allows us to honor the speakers, the presenters, the trainers, the instructors. I don't believe in like asking people for everything for free, because we're a cultural community center. So I really believe in what people are worth. So.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you so much for hanging out with me on camera
Oh,
today.
girl, I wouldn't be anywhere else. So didn't even feel like an interview.
Yeah. See, I'm so honored to know you and honored to be working alongside you. And just a reminder, folks, that the ASHHO Cultural Center is across the street from the Costco Fred Meyer Walmart complex in Tumwater, across Little Rock Road, next to the Twin Star Bank. Come and join us. Check out the ASHHO Cultural Center at ashho.org.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Khurshida, for
Thank
joining me
you,
today.
sis. I appreciate you just sitting here. Like I forgot that we were here.